Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Longmeadow celebration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolutionary War. My name is Brian Tidland, and I'm the commander of the East Longmeadow American Legion Post 93 and the MC for today's celebration in town. The American Revolutionary War started on April 19, 1775 in Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, with a shot heard round the world. And that shot was a call to all volunteers to converge and assemble in Cambridge, Massachusetts. These volunteers became known as Minutemen, and they were the beginning of the Continental Army, which would fight against the English army to win our freedom and independence against England. With this win, it would officially start the United States of America. So let us not forget this date and also remember those men who fought for America's freedom and independence we enjoy today. I would like to call up Emma Ruff to sing the Star Spangled Banner.
Brooks and Hood, Fritz and Arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by the East Longmeadow Boy Scouts, Troop 179, right? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now have opening prayer by American Legion Post 293 Chaplain Glenn Chauvin.
Uncover.
Lord, we know the story we remember today is just one fine example of the lives men and women who sacrifice their lives for others. Let us know this story is among the many examples of true brotherhood. Let us single out and hold it for us and remember that all persons of all faith, color, and creeds are capable of showing such courage and such compassion. Such has been true for so many who have served in the Revolution, the war, and in peace. Such has been true throughout generations. Help us to see even today the times that we might stand up for that which is most important and to do so with the concerns of others and themselves. Help us recognize the times we might overlook in the insufficient differences between people and respond to the needs of someone such as he or she in person of need. Forgive us for those times in which we participate in freedom of our lands, yet fail to honor the rights of Americans. Help us to learn how to show justice in our lives, to love mercy in our relationship, and others and walk humbly with you all the time. Thank you, Lord, for watching over us and confronting us in grief. May we also feel a presence of joy and celebration of your love as it shines through the human spirits we remember today, as it shines throughout all of the truly love, justice, and peace. May all who present at this service gain wisdom and compassion for worshiping together today. Amen.
Thank you, Glenn. Okay. Now we'll have America the Beautiful played by East Longmeadow High School student Brendan Schmidt. Thank you, Brendan. Now I'd like to invite town historian Bruce Moore up here to read the Massachusetts Governor's Proclamation. You're not going to use that? Okay.
Get my stuff out here. Good morning. Thank you all for attending this special celebration commemorating the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. I'll be reading a proclamation to our patriots who sacrificed so much for our freedom. This proclamation will be displayed in a prominent location somewhere in town here. Hear ye, hear ye! Whereas on the morning of April 20th, 1775, upon hearing the Lexington alarm of clanging church bells and signal guns, able-bodied men from the community that is now the town of East Longmeadow responded to the call to arms, assembled on the Longmeadow town green, and marched to Springfield to join with other towns and form the 1st Hampshire Regiment of Massachusetts Militia. And whereas among those from East Longmeadow who served in the American Revolution were those who participated in the Siege of Boston and later fought at key battles such as Bunker Hill, the Battle of Long Island, the Battle of Saratoga, and the Battle of Fort George. Whereas these men faced great hardships, leaving behind farms and families to serve in the Continental Army, enduring harsh conditions and risking their lives for the cause of freedom, defending vital posts, engaging in skirmishes, and protecting their communities from further British incursions, culminating in the eventual victory of the United States. And whereas 47 men who lived in from what is now East Longmeadow before, during, and after the American Revolution served in the war, and after the war, these veterans returned home and contributed to the development of East Longmeadow and surrounding communities, with many settling in the area and playing integral roles in local civic life ensuring that their sacrifices for liberty would not be forgotten. And whereas the bravery and sacrifice of those ordinary citizens who became patriots and heroes is commemorated in East Longmeadow to ensure future generations remember the sacrifices. Therefore, it be resolved that the Massachusetts Legislature hereby honors the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and pays tribute to these patriots whose courage and sacrifices helped defeat the British and begat us as a nation, making possible the Massachusetts Declaration of Rights and the founding of the United States of America. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded by the Clerk of the House of Representatives to the town of East Longmeadow, Post 293 of the American Legion, the East Longmeadow Historical Commission, and any relevant historical societies or groups dedicated to preserving the history and legacy of East Longmeadow's Revolutionary War veterans. To recognize the historical shot heard round the world, there will be a single shot fired by American Legion member Ed Brown.
Group, 10 Hood. Present arms. Order. Hot. Ready.
Thank you, Bruce and Ed. We'll now have remarks by Historical Commission staff George Kingston and Ken Hancock.
On this day, 250 years ago, the War of Independence began with the battles of Lexington and Concord. Back then, East Longmeadow didn't even exist as an official place. It was simply the eastern half of Longmeadow, which itself was just the southern precinct of Springfield. It had no churches and probably nothing we would recognize as a store or even a tavern. Yet it was a separate community with a population of around 250 people, living on perhaps 40 to 50 farms, and recognized as a separate village. All able-bodied men in that village between the ages of 16 and 60 were members of the Springfield Company of Militia, and 1 in 10 of them was designated to be ready to march at a minute's notice. So when they woke on the morning of April 20th to the distant clanging of church bells and the boom of signal guns coming from Springfield, Wilbraham, Longmeadow, and other surrounding towns, they knew that something was up. This was the Lexington alarm. Early on that April morning, Elijah Burt took his musket and left his farm on Chestnut Street, where his house still stands. He hurried over the dirt roads to the Longmeadow Town Green. He was the first from East Longmeadow to respond. My colleague Ken Hancock has identified many more men who would become, from what would become our town, who fought for our independence, and I turn it over to Ken to tell you more of their stories.
Thank you, George. What began as a personal curiosity to learn more about the 13 Revolutionary War veterans buried in our 4 cemeteries transformed into a comprehensive historical and genealogical research project to identify and document the veterans of the Revolutionary War who at some time in their lives lived in East Longmeadow. I am honored the Historical Commission has selected this work to be publicly unveiled today at the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord. In total, 47 men have been identified who have served and lived in town. Some specific facts are 18 Revolutionary War veterans are buried in our 4 cemeteries. 5 additional veterans were identified during the course of this project. 8 veterans were living in town when they enlisted. However, none of those 8 are buried here. Regarding state of enlistment, 24 enlisted from Massachusetts, 21 from Connecticut, and 2 are unknown. There were 2 instances of father and son serving. Daniel and Abiel Hancock from right here in East Longmeadow, Thatcher and David Lathrop from East Windsor, Connecticut. One of our veterans was a prisoner of war. Ephraim T. Hunn survived imprisonment on the infamous Old Jersey prison ship, which was moored in New York Harbor. He lived in East Longmeadow 58 years and died here in 1862 at the age of 96. He was our last surviving Revolutionary War veteran, and he is buried in Billings Hill Cemetery. There was one casualty. East Longmeadow enlistee Elijah Hancock died from smallpox while enlisted in 1779. Elijah had initially enlisted October 7th, 1775, so he served about 4 years. He was 21 when he passed. 8 of our veterans were Minutemen. As the legend of the Minutemen at the Battle of Lexington and Concord has gained iconic status, it is appropriate on this day we honor the service of these 8 men with a few words about their histories. As George mentioned, Elijah Burt was from East Longmeadow, and he marched from Longmeadow. He died in 1820, and he is buried in Longmeadow Cemetery. Lemuel Parsons marched from Springfield. He moved East Longmeadow in the 1780s and lived here until 1798. He died in 1830 and is buried in Springfield. Abner Hatch marched from Tolland, Connecticut. He moved East Longmeadow in 1800 and lived here until 1806 when he moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. He died in 1819 and is buried in Cincinnati. Levi Cadwell marched from Wilbraham. He moved East Longmeadow in 1811 and died here in 1827. He is buried in Baptist Village Cemetery. Ebenezer McGregory marched from Enfield, Connecticut. He moved East Longmeadow in 1792 and died here in 1822. He is buried in Baptist Village Cemetery. Thatcher Lathrop marched from East Windsor, Connecticut. He moved East Longmeadow in 1806 and died here in 1809. He was also a veteran of the French and Indian War and a direct descendant of Mayflower passengers John Howland and Elizabeth Tilley. He is buried in Billings Hill Cemetery. Nathaniel Waterhouse marched from New London, Connecticut. He was also a veteran of the French and Indian War. He never actually lived in East Longmeadow, but his children did. When he died in Summers in 1812, his family buried him in Billings Hill Cemetery. These 7 Minutemen all marched at notice of the Lexington alarm on April 20th or 21st, 1775. Our 8th Minuteman was Philip Butterfield of Dunstable, Massachusetts. 250 years ago today, April 19th, 1775, the alarm reached Dunstable in the pre-dawn hours. Within minutes, Dunstable's company of 28 Minutemen, which included 17-year-old Private Philip Butterfield, began their march to Concord. By the time they arrived, the shot heard around the world had been fired at North Bridge. The skirmish with the British had concluded, and the British were in retreat back to Boston. Based on the account of the day from Ebenezer Bancroft, a prominent citizen of Dunstable and French and Indian War veteran who accompanied the Minutemen, the Dunstable Company pursued the retreating British until they overtook and engaged them at West Cambridge. This is significant, as Private Butterfield's participation in the events of April 19th, 1775, directly connects East Longmeadow to the first day of our War for Independence. Butterfield continued his service until 1778, which included the Battle of Bunker Hill, the Siege of Boston, service at Fort Ticonderoga and Rhode Island. He married Mary Parkhurst in 1778 and raised a large family in Dunstable, where he was a prominent citizen. By 1830, he was living in East Longmeadow with his daughter Asenath and son-in-law Friend Hamblett. They owned a farm on North Main Street near the current location of Kelly Fredette Lumber. Philip Butterfield died in East Longmeadow in 1847 at the age of 89. He is buried up on the hill in the original triangle of Green Lawn Cemetery. The histories of all of our Revolutionary War veterans are remarkable. All of the research can be seen in the history room in the library, or If you are interested in getting the electronic file with histories for each of our 47 veterans, just contact the Historical Commission, and they or I will email you a copy. Tonight, I hope you will join me in raising a glass to our 47 Revolutionary War veterans in honor and appreciation of their service that secured the liberty and freedom we enjoyed today. Thank you.
Thank you, George and Ken. Now we will have remarks by Town Manager Tom Christensen. Come on up, Tom. How you doing? How are you? Good. Good. How you feeling? Good. Yeah, the hand, but I'm doing okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm always impressed by our turnouts for all of our events. Thank you to the Post 293, East Longmeadow Historical Commission. Obviously, a lot of work to put this event together. Ken's research, George. It's just a great day. Thanks to Boy Scouts of America for being here. East Longmeadow Fire Department, Police Department for helping out. Rep Ash, Rep Pupolo, Senator Oliveira, thank you for being here. Town councilors, appreciate all the support. Welcome to the kickoff of the statewide celebration of the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. When I think about the events of this day, it makes me think of a particular line in one of our most famous documents. One line that I'm convinced was in the author's minds when it was penned a little over a year later. Of course, I'm talking about the Declaration of Independence, and I want to read an excerpt from that now. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And quite the revolution it was. Spoiler alert, we won, yeah, we got it. My good friend Terry always says, freedom isn't free. That was true then, and it's true today. It's important for us to be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Now we'll have remarks by East Longmeadow Town Council President Connor O'Shea. Come on up, Connor. Don't be shy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, and thank you all for coming. Of course, thank you to Post 293 of the American Legion and the East Longmeadow Historical Commission especially for putting together this event and doing the incredible research on the background of the East Longmeadow men who served. Of course, we know today marks 250 years ago when the shots were fired at the battles of Lexington and Concord, and this marked the start of the American Revolutionary War. The phrase "the shot heard round the world" was popularized later by Ralph Waldo Emerson, and it became a symbol for the spark that ignited the conflict and, of course, the global impact that the revolution had. As others have said previously, with East Longmeadow being part of Massachusetts, our town had a front row seat to history and the founding of our nation. Of course, back then when the shots first rang out, East Longmeadow wasn't really East Longmeadow. It would have been hard for any of the early settlers, including the 47 men from what is now East Longmeadow, to have estimated the turning point that had been taken towards American independence. The seeds of liberty and freedom were sown by brave men who did not necessarily see themselves as bold leaders or revolutionaries, yet history has judged them to be just that. Today, I'm thankful for the courage and sacrifice of all of those who helped the independence of the United States. And as a result, we have enjoyed the fruits of prosperity, freedom, and security. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Now we will have remarks by State Senator Jacob Oliveira. Hopefully I said that right. Close enough, huh? How you doing? Thank you. welcome.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you to the American Legion in East Longmeadow. Thank you to the Historical Commission, our members of town government, Tom Christensen, members of the town council, my two colleagues from the House of Representatives, Brian Nash and Angelo Pupolo, who have represented this community for many years and were the sponsors of the resolution that was just read into the record and will be displayed back here on Town Hall. I should probably keep my sunglasses on right now because I have severe bags under my eye because I just got back from Lexington this morning for the battle reenactment where we celebrated the 250th anniversary of the start of the American Revolution and the shot heard around the world. Nearly 25,000 residents from across the world gathered on Lexington Green to pay tribute to this milestone. And people might ask, why was it Lexington? Why was it Concord? And how does it relate back to the communities that sent militias to both of those communities to defend themselves against British incursion? Well, when you look at it, the colonists stored gunpowder in Concord. Two revolutionaries that we know today, Sam Adams, one of our first governors of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under our Constitution, and our very first governor under the Constitution of Massachusetts, John Hancock, were actually held out in Concord. And in Lexington, on the way there, they stored their papers. So for the young people that are here today from the Scouts, that's like leaving your cell phone behind. You don't want to find the information that's on there. So as the British regulars approached Lexington Green, a group of just under 100 militiamen from the area, and they weren't Americans at the time, they were subjects of the crown still. They were subjects of the crown who had placed upon them onerous, not just taxes that we know of today when we hear and think of the American Revolution, but basically a police state within the city of Boston. So militias and communities began to develop and brought arms together, and they stood their ground on the Green in Lexington. And it's still a mystery to this day who actually fired that first shot, whether it was one of the militia members or one of the regulars. But the shot rang out, and as a result of that, the British opened fire, the regulars opened fire on the colonists, and 8 people were killed rather instantly, and the British cleared the Lexington Green. They then marched on to Concord, where they began to try to dismantle the North Bridge, when militias from all across the eastern part of Massachusetts, and that call rang out from people like Paul Revere and William Dawes, who rode to alert the militias of the British regulars marching on Lexington and Concord. So at that point, the Americans turned the tide. And by the end of the day, they sent the British packing back to Boston, where nearly over 100 British troops were killed and less than 75 Massachusetts militia members were killed. That day, even though it was a very small piece of the start of something that we hold dear to our hearts, our American Democratic Republic, the soldiers, the people that volunteered themselves, the regular folks, the individuals who came together to risk their lives, sparked not just the revolution, but sparked the world's oldest democracy. And I think that's important to point out in this day and age. That oldest democracy is fragile. It needs to be defended. It needs to be respected. And that's what our troops continue to do to this day. On behalf of the Massachusetts Senate, thank you all for gathering and to celebrate this milestone of 250 years. Over the next few years, we'll be celebrating some more significant milestones, including the battles of Bunker Hill, Evacuation Day when the British left Boston permanently, and next year, the 250th anniversary of our founding document, who Tom Christensen quoted, our Declaration of Independence. On behalf of the Senate, thank you to the East Longmeadow community for recognizing this milestone.
Thank you, Jacob. Now we'll have comments by State Representative Brian Nash. Brian. How you doing?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. It is always great to be here in East Longmeadow One, I want to thank my colleagues, friends in state and local government, our police, our fire, all of you, who many I see on 4th of July, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, to our scouts, and of course, Post 293, gentlemen behind me. I wouldn't miss an opportunity to be with you guys. And that's, I'm being sincere. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend a Paul Revere ceremony. It's a replica lanterns that they have out in Boston, and we did a little ceremony down at the Springfield Museums. And they have two of the lanterns, two of the replica lanterns there, and it just made me think how one action can have such a ripple effect. That if something doesn't happen, it could have changed the whole course of our history. But it did, and Paul Revere wrote, he held the two lanterns, saying that the British were coming by sea. So those are really the veterans. Every year when we celebrate our veterans, the ones that are here or the ones we've lost, it's really 250 years ago, those veterans, those people who stepped up, that gave us our chance here in this country, that gave us the opportunity, that gave us the freedoms that we have, so the rest of us can continue to live like we do. And thank God they were there then, and thank God our brave men and women today are still serving. So I'm proud to be here today. I'm proud to stand with all you, and I thank all of you. And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brian. Now we'll have remarks by State Representative Angelo Pupolo.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I think I'm like the cleanup guy here, so we're winding down to the end, so you should be happy with that. But seriously, it's an honor and privilege for me to be here today and say a few words. When you think about 250 years ago, you think about what's happened in this country, and it all stems back, right? It all stems back to 250 years. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank all of the people for being here today. East Longmeadow always is a town that never forgets our veterans, never forgets the opportunity to thank our veterans and service members, even going back 250 years to the Revolutionary War. I want to thank all the Legion members, everybody that's here. Certainly thank you all for your dedication, your service, and your commitment. Thanks to the Historical Commission, thanks to local town officials and my colleagues in state government as well. And certainly the Historical Commission did a wonderful job with that history, and I really appreciated that. Some of which, most of which I honestly didn't know. A lot of the details, a lot of history. So I'm going to further look into that. But today I'm here pretty much just to say thank you. Thank you again to our police and fire departments who's here as well, and keep us safe in that tradition. But I just want to say thank you, for what we stand for and why we're all here today. And I think that's important. When you think about it, and a couple things that were said, I'm not going to rehash a history lesson, but a couple things that were said. Think about it, right? 2025. Back 250 years ago, there were no Ubers, right? There's no transportation. How many people here today would get up in the middle of the night and walk to Boston? Not too many. I got a hard time driving to Boston for the sessions, let alone walking. But when you think about that call, right? They got the call. They just went. There was no easy way to get there. There was no easy task when they got there. And they continued to serve and continued to fight because they believed in the cause and they knew it had to be done. That's why we're here 250 years. That's why across the Commonwealth and so many other places, we're recognized in this historical event. And I just, again, want to just say thank you, because without that start, without that history, without that revolution, without that shot that was heard around the world, we may not be here today. Or if we were, and we are, it certainly may not look the way it does. So with that, again, I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's an honor and privilege to represent each and every one of you in Boston. It's an honor and privilege to be here. And on behalf of myself and my colleagues, thank you all and congratulations from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Thank you, Angelo. We will now have placing of the wreaths by Commander Brian Tidland and Town Manager Tom Christensen at the memorial marker, and East Longmeadow Veterans Grave Officer Mike Lupo and Historical Commission Chairman Tom Bean at the Veterans Memorial flag. Gentlemen, step forward.
We're not going too far.
Group 10 hood. Present iron. Order, arms, at ease.
We will now have military honors with the plane of task by East Longmeadow High School students Emmanuel Garcia and Michael Lonsack. I hope I said that right.
Group 10 hood. Present arms. Order, arms.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll have Brandon Schmidt, who will play The Fallen. Thank you, Brendan. We are going to have Brendan play one more song as soon as he catches his breath. He's going to play Your Grand Old Flag. Thank you, Brendan. All right, to finish off our ceremony, I'd like to invite Emma Ruff up here again to sing God Bless America.
God bless America. fight with whom? God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Emma. This is going to conclude our celebration today. I'd like to give a few thank yous out. First, the singer Emma Ruff for singing. The trumpets by Emmanuel Garcia and Michael Lonsock. Bagpiper Brendan Schmidt, who happens to be a member of the Springfield Kilty Band. East Longmeadow Boy Scouts Troop 179. Town Historian Bruce Moore. Historical Commission staff George Kingston, Ken Hancock, Town Manager Tom Christensen, Town Council President Connor O'Shea, Senator Oliveira, Representative Ash and Representative Pupolo, and the members of the American Legion Post 293, and especially to the citizens of East Longmeadow for coming out and helping us celebrate this historic day today. Thank you, and everyone have a great day.